Veterans dealing with injuries for the Cincinnati Bengals are starting to shut it down for this season. Let's get into that. Plus, what the Bengals and Joe Burrow are still playing for this season.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We are Locked On Bengals on the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. If you're new to the show, you can subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode as Joe Burrow tries to stay, in his own words, entertaining. Well, I guess it's not exactly his words, but that's what he was trying to say. And the Bengals are trying to stay relevant down the stretch here in some way, shape, or form to Bengals fans. Welcome back to the everydayers as well. Those of you who make us your first listen, we appreciate those of you who make us part of your routine. We're brought to you by FanDuel today. And when you win your first $5 bet with FanDuel, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. Again, if you win that first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. And James, as the Bengals are seeing their playoff hopes dwindled to essentially non-existent, not really thinking about the playoffs at this point. Joe Burrow talked about that on Thursday, as well. The veterans of this team are starting to take care of their injuries. And we have seen a couple of guys heading to the IR in Evan McPherson and Logan Wilson. Meanwhile, Orlando Brown was described as doubtful as he tried to play through that injury last week and obviously wasn't moving at his best, especially by the end of the game.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, Logan Wilson had to have a cleanup surgery on his knee, and it's something I think you probably look at and you're like, oh, well, yeah, he might be able to play through it if you're in the mix. But if it's borderline or if it's really uncomfortable and you know you're going to have the surgery anyway, you might as well get a 5-week jump on it, right? With Evan, it was some tightness, some soreness on game day. And I think at some point it might have happened that day. So it's not like he's been playing with it for weeks from the sound of it. But then you bounce back from that game, and on that Monday you come in and you notice it. So they go out and they sign Cade York, who we heard from today. He's from Dallas, reunites with Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase was on that LSU national championship team. So there's Cade. We could talk more about him if you want. But the one that I think is interesting is Orlando Brown Jr. And for a few reasons. One, he's not on IR. Logan Wilson's going to go on IR. Evan McPherson's already on IR. So they're going to miss at least 4 games. You probably just shelve both for the season, barring something really unforeseen happening. And Orlando, well, I don't necessarily think he's going to go on IR today or tomorrow. It doesn't feel that way, at least. He could. I believe his injury is pretty significant. And I've talked around that. Our everydayers know that. I've tried to drop hints without being too direct, but he's been really battling to try to get on the field. And then you saw when he got on the field, clearly not moving like he normally would. And so now that you're 4-8, it's like, okay, well, shut it down, big man. And I hope he does. Now, that doesn't mean they'll necessarily put him on IR because there's still a chance. It's a very small chance. It's not something we're even entertaining here on Locked On Bengals. But as an organization, it would be malpractice not to entertain the idea that, oh, well, maybe they do win a couple in a row. And Orlando Brown might be feeling better. They win 3 in a row, and Orlando Brown Jr. is feeling better, and they have something to play for. If that does happen, you don't want to completely shut him down if there is that chance. But if they lose on Monday, there won't be that chance. And so then there's no reason to play Orlando Brown Jr. What is it right now? About 3%? That's Cade York's new number, for those wondering. So, yeah, the Orlando Brown Jr. one is interesting to me, Jake, because of the butterfly effect it has on the offensive line, because now Cody Ford is no longer playing left guard.
Yeah, the practice lineup was Cody Ford back to left tackle, Cordell Volson back to left guard. Amarius Mims was also limited, just injury report teaser there. We will talk about the injury report as well here as the Bengals practice for the first time this week. We got the first injury report of the week. If you're at a point where you have Devin Cochran at one tackle, Cody Ford at the other tackle, and an interior offensive line that hasn't held up. Your best offensive lineman, Ted Karras, it would be Ted Karras in that case. And the center is the least impactful to pass blocking on your entire offensive line, often helping one of the two guards very infrequently getting to those one-on-one situations. We would have to have a conversation, I think, about the merits of playing Joe Burrow behind that kind of line and risking him in that situation, quite frankly. But the perhaps canary in the coal mine on Orlando Brown is similar to the move we saw with Shaka Hayward, where Shaka Hayward joined the roster for the Bengals before Logan Wilson headed or is heading now to IR after that surgery on what's today, the 5th? Yesterday, on Wednesday, the Bengals signed Andrew Stuber back to the active roster. And that probably tells you all you need to know about their confidence that Orlando Brown's going to be ready to play anytime soon. Devin Cochran also on the active roster at this point. So they've got these guys from the practice squad up or midseason acquisitions up onto the active roster now, which probably tells you about the severity and the likelihood that Orlando Brown's going to be back anytime soon.
Yeah, it's severe. It's severe. Orlando, and it's awful because way back in, when did I talk to Orlando the first time this offseason? March? It was before the draft. I remember talking draft with Orlando and just talking through some guys and stuff. Like, he loves football. He loves all of that stuff. And he's like, man, I'm going to have a big year. He was ready to go, comes in, and he was on his way to having a big year. And this injury, unfortunately, derailed it. And that's what sucks is it's like, man, not that the offense completely stopped without him, but it could have been that much better. And maybe that much better makes a little bit of a difference in some of these one-score games that they've had to play over the past month plus without him.
Yeah, I mean, if he can move, I don't think Nate Herbig that plays.
No chance.
He's not running around him like that. He might beat
No.
him in that game from time to time, but he's not running around him like that and hitting Joe Burrow in the throwing arm like on a 3-step drop and a hitch. Like, it's not that.
The ball
bad.
would be gone.
Yeah.
Yep, the ball would be gone.
So yeah, it's really unfortunate to see for Orlando. I would say the same thing for Logan Wilson, especially if he's been dealing with this and was trying to gut through it for a little bit there. He was one of the few pieces of this Bengals defense that was roughly playing up to expectations. Like, it wasn't his best year necessarily, but he was still playing well. He was still better than what we saw without him. And so for a defense that couldn't really afford any blows to be remotely watchable, because at this point they're not a watchable defense. Like, it's not very pleasant to watch the Bengals on football days when they don't have the ball. I was going to say Sunday, but they play on Monday this week. Losing Logan is not going to help the situation, obviously, on the defensive side of the ball. That's a tough one. But on the bright side, like, hopefully the 5-week head start eliminates any doubt that he's going to be totally fine heading into next season, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're and we're going to get into this, but you're trying to preserve the pieces that are going to matter next year that are going to matter. Logan matters, Orlando matters, Jamar certainly matters, Amarius matters, but Amarius needs reps, of course. Joe matters. And what I do wonder is how long this goes, because you were still evaluating all of these guys in this coaching staff. And so it's a delicate balance. But with guys that you know about, that you have answers on, Orlando, Logan, easy for me. It's easy money. You know it. Go take a seat, guys, and get healthy. And hopefully that's the case. Barring 5 straight wins and the most improbable thing ever that none of us expect, right? That no one listening, viewing, neither of us expect it. So why? And honestly, I think the locker room understands that to a very large degree. No one is thinking, oh, well, if, or what about, no. That those days are gone, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to get to what the Bengals are playing for at this point. What Joe Burrow talked about on Thursday in terms of like what he's playing for, what the team has to play for, and his mindset. We've kind of had hints at this for a few weeks now, but I find it interesting that he continues to get into it a little bit more and has been very realistic all year about where the team is, what his mindset is. And so we'll discuss that, shift gears, and get into what Joe Burrow is talking about and thinking about as the rest of this Bengals season has 5 games coming up
Shift
next.
gears. Today's show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. I bet you'll remember that promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtful, curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more. Save 50% site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, Locked On Bengals listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com, omahasteaks.com, and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply.
This episode of Locked On Bengals is also sponsored by Skylight Frames. If gift giving isn't your love language, you overthink it and wind up with something disappointing or nothing at all, or you find it really stressful, or you're trying to buy something for someone who has everything or just seems unpleasable, like James Rapien, my esteemed co-host, well, maybe we've got the perfect gift for you here with the Skylight Frame. The touch screen digital photo frame your whole family will use. You can upload thousands of photos from your phone via email and watch them appear in seconds. Setup takes less than 60 seconds in the first place, so really easy to get set up here. The touchscreen is a game changer, so you can just swipe through photos, tap to see the new photos that you've received on your Skylight Frame, tap the heart button to say thank you to the sender. If you've got numerous people contributing to your Skylight Frame gallery, better than social media, it's private. You don't have to share it to the world so that your family can see it. And right now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, you can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL.
All right, Jake, let's get into what the Bengals are playing for, and it's certainly not the playoffs. And if you had told me Joe Burrow was playing at this elite level and Jamar Chase was playing at the level he was and they'd be 4-8, I would have laughed at you. But here we are. I will say this, just getting to the vibe of the locker room a little bit. I think they're still motivated and competitive, right? Like, I don't think they're not going to go out there and play hard. But I also understand, I think they understand, like, all right, it's done. Like, even Zach's tone this week isn't, well, we just got to get one and then we're going to hit our stride. It's more like, hey, it's Monday Night Football. It's the Cowboys. It's a big game. Who wouldn't want to be excited for that? And that's just different than we've seen in the past. So I definitely have noticed that change. You're right. Joe has always been that way. But I think the rest of the locker room has kind of been like, all right, now let's accept what we are. And there are a lot of guys playing for a lot, including veterans. Mike Hilton's playing for a lot. BJ Hill's playing for a lot. There are guys that have a lot on the line, big monies, and maybe a couple of zeros on the line. So you're going to have to perform at a high level.
And throw Mike Gesicki into that mix too, a guy that Joe Burrow said he would like to have back next season.
How about him saying that? Yeah. 5 games to go, and he's like, yeah, I would like to have him back. He's already thinking, you can tell. I bet he's doing what we're doing. Like, what needs to change?
I think that's definitely part of his thought process. And it's not like he's keeping it a secret. He's talking about, his own personal motivations. He's going to continue to play football the way he wants to play for a number of reasons. We'll talk about those. One of them is he's talked about comeback player of the year and that being a meaningful award for him to win. He said that nobody's won it twice, which is an interesting observation. If he does win it this year, that would be a second time. He said that would mean a lot to him. But beyond that, just in terms of the entire team and speaking to his mindset outside of his personal motivations, talking about, the playoffs are probably out of reach, but these are very valuable reps to prove that you can be counted on going forward. Mm-hmm. And that is not subtle at all. There's no subliminal message there. That is, hey, you want to be part of this going forward? you want to be someone we can count on going forward, that I can count on being Joe Burrow going forward, you better show up for these last 5 games and show that you can be part of this team.
Yeah, no doubt. I think there are, I mean, we could go through, I'm not going to go through the depth chart, but think about how many guys that went from free agent prizes, like Geno Stone, certainly trying to show that he deserves to be there. And by the way, I'd be Tyson Anderson time. That's what I would do. But they're not doing that. They're sticking with Geno. So at least for now, there are a lot of guys like that. Mike Gesicki, he can earn himself a lot of money. I think the Bengals will be in on him this offseason, but he can push it to where there's a market elsewhere, a significant market elsewhere if he plays well. I mentioned Mike Hilton. I think a guy like Von Bell, whatever snaps he does get, he needs to show everyone that he needs to be in the league next year and still be an NFL player. So there are guys like that. And then it's the other way where you have Amarius, who's going to get tested every week. There's great pass rushers every week, it seems like, that they have to deal with. And he can grow. And it's like, all right, well, how high can his ceiling get? Well, these next 5 weeks are going to be huge for him in his development and growth. So just out of the guys playing, those are some of the ones where you're playing for something big. And that doesn't include Joe Burrow saying, hell yeah, when asked about the Triple Crown for Jamar Chase, which I love. I love that was his response. And we'll see if they can get Jamar there. I think it's going to be tough with the receptions too, because he just commands so much attention, but maybe.
Just start forcing him more of those screens everybody hates so much for a few yards. I think
I don't want him to get hit like that.
Yeah. I mean, he's pretty good at avoiding big hits, to his defense.
You better knock on wood, Jake. Let's go.
I'm talking about something that he's good at, like a skill set. Anyway, a few other players that come to mind when Joe's talking about these reps are – is that really what you're waiting for? These reps are very valuable. To show that you can be counted on going forward. I mean, I think of guys like Cordell Volson, who got benched and now is back in the lineup, playing for an opportunity to be part of the conversation next year. Guys like that, Cody Ford, guys like that, guys like Jermaine Burton, guys like Cam Taylor-Britt, like that kind of
Charlie
player
Jones, who was limited today.
Yeah. We didn't circle back to the injury report, so we can do that too. But like guys that have like kind of fallen off from where their expectations were. Myles Murphy taking that step. Joseph Osai playing for contract stakes, right? Like all of these guys in that same bucket that have a lot to play for in terms of, sounds like proving to Joe that he can count on them in the future.
All the guys you just named, right? So the Cams, the Jermaines, Cordells, who are you, Miles? Who are you most confident in that really excels over the final 5 weeks?
Nah. Confident? Nah.
Well, that's it. That's it. And that's what's crazy about this is you're not banking on any of them. Like Cam played well last week, so probably him, but it's been so bad that can you say that? I think we know what Cordell is, but you're right. He could play his way into it. Cody Ford, he better be a backup next year, but you never know. I'm fine with him being on the roster. I think he's valuable with his position flex as like a OL8.
Yeah,
is what I would
that's
say.
what we're talking about for some of these guys, for sure.
Yeah, but I think that's the Jermaine Burton one is so huge. Mm-hmm. Like, can you even get on the field?
Yeah.
Like, can you get on the field?
Yeah.
Can you earn the trust to get on the field and do the thing that you were supposed to be able to do so well, and that this fan base spent half the season whining and bitching and moaning about because you weren't getting your opportunity? And then you get out there and you're not running hard. You're taking a long way, the long route on a go route where you're supposed to just run straight, basically. It's there's a lot of things there. So hopefully he can, because you see the talent. But man, it's December 5th, Jake. It's not October 5th. It's time to get going.
The other big notes on the injury report, just to wrap that thought up before we move on and talk about Hard Knocks a little bit here. Jamar Chase was limited with an ankle, but there's no alarm bells going off around that one yet. We'll monitor it over the next couple of days. Charlie Jones, you mentioned, was limited with the groin. Amarius Mims also limited with an ankle, another one that we'll monitor. Sheldon Rankins still not back as he's dealing with that illness. And those are the big ones on the injury report. But Hard Knocks was interesting to say the least. Let's talk about the biggest takeaways and notes from the first episode of the in-season AFC North Hard Knocks here coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by IceShaker.com. I know you're like me and your holiday shopping list is, well, far from complete. Well, if that's the case, you got a Bengals fan in your life. You might have multiple Bengals fans in your life. You probably do. Well, maybe you've heard of IceShaker. IceShaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, Major League Baseball, and it's going to make the ideal gift because we're talking about a bottle that is going to be perfect for your workouts, for your day-to-day. It's a kitchen-grade stainless steel bottle that won't absorb odor like other plastic bottles do. It's patented twist and alligator. That's hilarious. Twist and agitator breaks up powder, so it's a perfect shaker for anything from your pre-workouts to you're mixing in creatine, whatever the case is. Your BCAAs, Jake Liscow. I know Jake Liscow's been getting swole now in the gym. The point is, and this just isn't for gym goers. This is for anyone that wants that awesome shaker that also wants to rock their favorite team, whether it's the Cincinnati Bengals, whether it's an NBA team, NHL, they have it. So order your team-branded bottles today at IceShaker.com. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. IceShaker, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market, IceShakers.com.
Locked On Bengals also sponsored today by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, with the awesome offer for new customers that when you win your first $5 bet, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win that bet. So if you're looking to get started with FanDuel, you could take a look at the Dallas Cowboys Cincinnati Bengals game this weekend. You can see that the Cincinnati Bengals are 5.5-point favorites, and maybe you have some concerns about the offensive line for the Bengals and Cooper Rush and the history there, and you're looking at this line and you're thinking, oh, maybe I don't think the Bengals will cover 5.5 points. Maybe on the other hand, you're confident that the Bengals have taken care of bad teams this season, and Dallas is another one of those bad teams with the losing record. And those are the teams the Bengals have beaten this year. Either way, if you win that first $5 bet, whatever it is, maybe you want to avoid the Bengals altogether, you'll get $150 in bonus bets when you get started. You can check it all out today at FanDuel.com. Official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Hard Knocks. Let's get to the Batmobile. The Batmobile. I'm sure you wanted to talk about football, Jake Liscow, which we can do. There were a lot of interesting things in Hard Knocks. I did think it was awesome. But the Batmobile, certainly something that Joe Burrow did not want to talk about in his press conference, said, I don't know what you're talking about, talked around it. I asked him his favorite superhero. I thought for sure he'd say Spider-Man. He went the X-Men route. I think he's kind of tricking us and messing with us at this point. And then at the end, he kind of mentioned excited to excited for the fans to see how I act and all of those things, or how I am in Hard Knocks, but hoping that they don't get anything that I don't want them to see. And then he confirmed that he didn't necessarily plan on anyone finding out that he was buying one of 10 Batmobiles that have been made and that will ship next year from The Dark Knight. And this Batmobile is awesome. The tumbler is sweet from the movie. And it's not street legal, but I definitely plan on asking Joe if I can drive it next year. I'm not going to lie to you.
That was a funny moment. That was a fun moment. And you get to see some of the personality there and some of the interest with Joe. And then the follow-up moment today, of course. But it creates a huge social media moment when the episode airs and everybody gets a hold of the clip and it goes viral and all these things. And it was a fun moment in a season that honestly hasn't had a ton of fun moments for Bengals fans, but Joe Burrow is still very likable, and nothing wrong with a little bit of Batman fun.
No, he's great. And it's how he definitely has some Bruce Wayne vibes, and that's not a bad thing. And so
I could see that.
Yeah. So It's like, that makes sense that you would have one of the 10 Batmobiles being made that aren't street legal, but I think for Joe Burrow, probably legal to drive it in Cincinnati. Not going to lie to you.
Interesting. Yeah,
Should be.
Let's not involve anybody there that we don't need to. Let's not draw attention to it. Let's let Joe do his thing.
Well, yeah.
Not have to deal with street legality questions.
Well, no, but it's everyone's seen it anyways. All right. So 2 other things that stood out to me about Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
One, I love watching Mike Tomlin and that Steelers coaching staff talk about Joe and Jamar.
Yeah, that was fun. That's definitely the part that stood out to me the most is the way that Mike Tomlin and his coaching staff talked about the threats that the Bengals were bringing to bear, and including Chase Brown. Like the follow-up, I don't think this was on Hard Knocks, but the follow-up talking about T. Higgins, talking about all the fouls on T. Higgins and the hack-a-shack approach, comparing T to Shaq, essentially. Mike Tomlin is a charismatic coach, let's say.
Well,
the guy seems like he knows what he's doing. I mean, obviously knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So a couple things. Joe and Jamar are the scariest duo in the league, and that's why you get that kind of respect. He said this SOB is dangerous, talking about Joe. I love it. But I got to look here. Hey, Mike. Or no, actually, this is a Bengals thing. Mike can do whatever he wants. The Shaq line, Bengals, is Mike Tomlin recruiting T. Higgins. He's starting it now.
Yep.
And the Steelers are going to try to sign him. And so what I need you to do is not let the Steelers get the opportunity. The way you do that is by tagging T. Higgins and not letting him pick his next team, because he very well could end up in Pittsburgh, because if he gets into a room with Mike Tomlin, they offer him $30 million plus per year, and it's Mike Tomlin, he might go to Pittsburgh. So please, Bengals, to PSA on December 5th. Franchise tag deadline is multiple months away. Count your pennies, get that thing going, and tag him and trade him somewhere else, at least, or just re-sign him.
Yeah, the most important thing is that he cannot go somewhere for free, especially to Pittsburgh, who's been squirreling away money for a premier wide receiver for a while now.
I mean, T. Higgins isn't Shaq. Mike Tomlin is just trying so. Hey, you play Shaq, you got to foul him. Use your fouls.
He's a coach that knows how to connect to players. That was obvious from watching Hard Knocks as well, right? You could see the way that he connects to his players. You can see how his messages can resonate with his team. There was a juxtaposition there too, I would say, with watching the way that Tomlin interacts and interfaces with the Steelers and the way Zach is interfacing and interacting with the Bengals.
Fair. Different styles.
Different styles for sure.
Yeah, like I don't really have I like that. I think it's more entertaining on Hard Knocks to see that side for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love how he built up Orlando Brown Jr., which is, when he's healthy, certainly fair. And he's like, Zeus Brown, the reason he's here is because Alex Highsmith blew past this dude. He's talking about
Jonah. Yeah.
Just roughs up Jonah bad.
Poor Jonah, catching strays.
And it's not wrong. It isn't wrong. And I like that, because, by the way, that's why you could, there's the shift of everything. Jamar got Tyreek Hill traded. Oh, no, he didn't. What are you talking about? Yeah, he did. They wanted to revamp that entire secondary, and they wanted to pay a bunch of offensive linemen. And so Jamar was part of that, because they had to revamp their entire secondary with the Chiefs. Like, that's what you do, is you prepare to beat your guy, these rivals. And so the Orlando part of it was interesting. I do wish they would have mentioned that he was playing through injury, though, instead of not. That was kind of dumb.
Yeah. I mean, they certainly knew. Hard Knocks.
Well, yeah, everybody knew. I wonder if they're mic'd. You think this room's mic'd up right now? Uh-oh. I'm at the stadium.
End up on Hard Knocks. Listening. Oh, no.
Man.
Was that it for you on Hard Knocks? You said 2 things. I don't know if we got to the second one.
It is for now. Go ahead.
Okay. No, that's it. That's all I got.
No, and Joe's reaction to just being amazing. Like the jump pass.
Pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. Like,
yeah.
Like that really is just how he is, huh? Like,
he was
that's not
fired up
just
in the moment, but then as soon as he got to the sideline, yeah, it was back to Joe
like
Cool,
normal
you know?
Joe. Like that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's just him.
Yeah.
That's like he would say that if I asked him, like, how was it beating Cade York in ping pong? I
That's
saw
pretty
that
cool.
final point. That was pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
a jump pass with Cam Hayward hugging you,
Yeah.
thrown into Jamar.
So
So he did work on Thursday. He did work on multiple jump passes at practice. So I thought that was fun.
that was a big part of his game against the Steelers. He's jumping all over the place. I mean, he's getting hit going to the ground, going to the ground more than I can ever remember in the last 2 weeks.
I hate it.
Yeah, but he's also giving us more LSU-esque Burrow moments than like at a higher frequency than we've seen in his career so far with some of the playmaking. He's been great. That hasn't changed. Bottom line, I think Hard Knocks was unexpectedly, I think, an enjoyable watch,
It was good.
despite the way things are going with the Bengals and with the season in Cincinnati.
Yep.
It was still worthwhile and still some cool stuff and getting to see what's going on. You still learn some things, I think.
And I can't wait to drive the Batmobile. Thanks, Joe.
Yep. That's the most important thing. James asking Joe Burrow to drive the Batmobile. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We'll be back with a preview for Monday Night Football on Sunday. You'll see that episode drop on your feeds. Until then, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.